What are indirect taxes in economics? Indirect taxes we're quite familiar with. When you buy, when you go to buy a mobile phone, a computer, a laptop, car, anything in the market, even when you are buying a pizza or anything in a restaurant, or even if, for that matter, a cup of coffee or tea, you have to pay GST, goods and services tax. That is an indirect tax, GST. What exactly is an indirect tax? An indirect tax is that whose tax liability and burden is on different people. The tax liability in economics we call it as tax liability, and burden is called incidence of the tax is on different people. What exactly it means? You take simple example, you buy a mobile phone or you buy a laptop, computer, or a car. GST is imposed on the seller of the car, but the seller, the liability of the GST or the tax is on the seller to the government, but the burden is passed on to you. You have to pay that GST along with the car price. They added GST. For example, you purchased a mobile phone maybe for 50,000 rupees. GST is 5,000 rupees. He will add it in the bill. So the total you have to pay, that is 55,000 rupees for this mobile phone. That is an indirect tax. I repeat, an indirect tax is that whose tax liability and the burden or incidence is on different people. The tax liabilities of the seller and the burden is passed on to the consumer. For example, GST is the best example. GST, goods and services tax. The tax is imposed on the seller, but the burden is passed on to the consumer. You can escape the indirect taxes. How can you escape indirect taxes? By not buying or consuming the goods. If you don't buy, you don't have to pay any GST. Don't buy a mobile phone or a computer, laptop. Don't purchase any food items in the market. You don't have to pay GST. So we can escape GST. We can escape indirect taxes. The indirect taxes are imposed on the goods and services when you buy. That is, when you spend your income. Otherwise, you don't have to pay. These are the indirect taxes are those whose tax liability and the burden is on different people. For example, GST is an indirect taxes.